everybody, so today I want to bring you a review on the Too Faced Tinted Beauty Balm, and this is actually something that's very, very new. And I've been using this for a while. I actually got it a week early from Ulta. Ulta was selling it early before it actually came out, so that's how I got mine. I just purchased it there. But it's $32, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So first and foremost, it is a primer, it is a tinted moisturizer, it is a foundation, and it is like a sunscreen and a skin treatment in one. At least that's what they claim. So it's a multi-benefit skincare makeup, and it has sunscreen. The ingredients are all right. It doesn't look like it'll break you out or anything, but I want to kind of tell you how I like to use it, what I think of it. And overall, I'm actually pretty pleased of it. My biggest spiff is with the colors, because there's only 4 colors and they're shimmery and it's kind of weird, but at the same time it kind of works, and I've just been okay with it, and I've actually been using it. And even as a foundation, this is very, very light. It's a very, very light foundation, or kind of a typical tinted moisturizer. I prefer to use it as a tinted moisturizer. And I don't need to prime. It's actually very, very quick to apply, even as a foundation, because you don't have to do a primer. As a foundation, it is alright. It's not the best foundation. It really shines as a tinted moisturizer. It works pretty well as a primer as well. I got mine in Vanilla Glow, and that's just the color that I got. But as a foundation, I feel like it's pretty long wearing. It doesn't last all day unless you put powder on it. If you want, you could use it. It will get shiny though, just because of the consistency. If you're fine with that, or if you have older skin, this is perfect for you. If you have like fine lines and wrinkles, this is like perfect because it won't settle. You know, just don't powder over it. Now, if you have younger skin or acneic skin, this may not be the best for you. If you use it, you probably will have to powder over it, and then it'll only last like 4 to 6 hours, not all day. If you don't powder over it, and if you're okay with looking a little bit shinier, if you're a little bit older, it will probably last 6 to 8. But it's definitely best as a tinted moisturizer. Foundation doesn't shine. As a tinted moisturizer, I love it. And even as a foundation, my skin can breathe, which I think really helps. So even if you have acne, this is a great buy for you if you're okay with letting your skin breathe a little bit more, and you know, maybe showing a couple of your blemishes or imperfections and just kind of being open about that. Because it really will let the skin breathe. That kind of helps the skin, you know, get its nutrients and oxidize and things like that. This foundation does not oxidize, by the way. Some foundations oxidize and kind of change color. It doesn't really do that very much, which I am happy about. But like I said, it's $32, and it kind of has different times depending on how you use it. As a primer, I think it works pretty darn well. Here's the thing, as a primer, it kind of has like a tint, and I got mine in Vanilla Glow, but as you guys can see, let's see here, it almost has like a color. So it looks like a foundation, it looks like a regular foundation, but when you blend it out, it's a little bit more sheer. Now, that's how I would blend it as a foundation, and then I would add a second layer. If I wanted it as a tinted moisturizer, then that's how I would blend it, but you can still see that it gives some color, and as a primer, just, you know, furthermore. And here's the thing, as a primer, it works okay. The thing is that because it has a tint, it will offset your foundation. So if you have foundation in your perfect color, this will offset it and it won't look too good. Now, if you use this and you have a foundation that's, you know, slightly off, like it's not your exact color, this will help to color correct the foundation. Because it has a little bit of pigment in it, you can either lighten a foundation or darken a foundation to match your ideal skin. So if you have a foundation that works perfectly, don't use this as a primer, but if you have one that's just a tad bit off, you can use this to tweak that color and kind of add as like a primer. Like if we use a green primer to cancel out red, it'll help get the foundation the right color. This will help correct a color foundation if you have it's too light, too dark, etc. As a primer, it works pretty well. It's pretty long wearing. I love that it has sunscreen in it. That is definitely a bonus. As a tinted moisturizer, like I said, I think it works the absolute best. It keeps my skin fresh. It feels great. It's not good. Like it's a little bit oily if I don't powder over it. But if I powder over it, you know, it's just not my thing. I really like to let my skin breathe in this one. Right now, I did powder over it just because it's a foundation for me. For me, I need to do 2 layers in order to get a foundation look, but it is pretty long wearing as a foundation, and if you powder it lasts longer, etc, etc. It also depends on the method you use to apply it. It sets pretty loosely, like it's not gonna, if you just apply it to your skin, it'll take about 5 to 10 minutes to actually set, and even then, you may need to powder over it a little bit. For older skin, it's great because you don't need to powder. It'll set, it'll be fine. But generally, you do have to like powder it to get it to set. but because the primer has, like, there's already a primer in it, the primer usually kind of keeps everything in its own place once it does set. I would say that this is actually great for dry skin. I know that there's not a lot of foundations out there for dry skin. I think this is a really great one. It has the moisturizer, it has the sunscreen, it has some, you know, good antioxidants, and it also has like little shimmery iridescence. And the girls in Ulta and I looked at this so close and they were like, no it doesn't, no it doesn't. I was like, yes it does, yes it does, and it does. We found out that it has like these microscopic shimmers, and I don't even know if you can tell. You probably can't. They're so super small. It's not like big glitter pigments like all up in your face. They are just the smallest little shimmers. And at first I was really worried. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be a glitter puff. But then we took a closer look and blended it out, and it really just gives the skin luminosity. So I think that's great for dry skin because it'll help hide any of these flakes, and the formulation is good for dry skin too. If you have oily skin, this is okay for you. For me, I personally love it because I like to give moisture to my oily skin to tell it to stop producing. Here's the thing, if you have oily skin, this will not last you all day. For instance, I am only expecting this to last 4 to 6 hours even though I did set. Because it's oily, it's not going to like smear off my face, but it's just going to get really shiny because the texture is naturally a little bit shiny. This is great for normal skin, great for dry skin. It'll help conceal those flakes and treat them. For oily skin, like I said, it's not the best, but if you're okay with going just for not a long wearing foundation, that's fine. As a tinted moisturizer, this works amazing for oily skin. If you have oily skin, you don't want to cover a lot, you just need a little bit of tint, this is going to be perfect for you. But if you're actually going to use it as a foundation for oily skin, not the perfect thing. So it does have a little bit of iridescent shimmer, and I was so scared. I was like, oh no, it's going to look awful, but that's why this makes such a good tinted moisturizer. It's not glitter puff in your face, it's just a slight iridescent shimmer so that you look glowing. You look luminous. And as a tinted moisturizer, that works best. The reason why is because it gives you that luminous glow. Now, as a foundation, you have to powder over. So as a foundation, it kind of, the powder mattifies that shimmery glow. So you guys probably can't see a ton of glow, maybe a little bit, but it's not like a ton. The glow, and I'm not talking about shimmer like shiny, I'm talking about a natural, like, oh my gosh, she's just glowing kind of glow. As a tinted moisturizer, it's amazing. As a foundation, we powder over, so that kind of diminishes it. As a primer, you can't really tell that it gives a regular foundation a glow. If you use this as a primer under a very sheer foundation, then you can kind of see a little bit of a glow. But if you use it as a primer under a normal foundation or under a full coverage foundation, you won't be able to see a glow. But it's really nice because it gives like kind of a luminous shine without being oily, like not shiny, but just glowy. You know, it's not shimmery, it's not glittery, just glowy. And I was really scared at first, but I really like it kind of all said and done. And that's why it makes such a great kind of tinted moisturizer for me, is because you get the glow, you get the sheer coverage with the benefits, and it still covers and it still, you know, color corrects, but it's not too much and it lets the skin breathe. Yeah. When you actually put this on as a, you know, when you just put it on, it actually comes off as kind of like a luminous, kind of like a velour silk feel. It's not dewy. It's not a dewy foundation. If you are oily, it will be dewy, if that makes sense. If you put it on and you have normal skin, it's going to be kind of like a velvet satin finish. If you have oily skin, it'll be this velvet satin finish for a little while, and then your skin will get oily, and it will be a more dewy finish. So keep that in mind depending on how your skin works. It will not be a dry finish. You can make it a dry finish if you add a powder, and if you have normal to dry skin, it'll stay that way. If you have dry skin, though, I wouldn't recommend powdering just because it'll get inside the little, you know, flakes. But if you have oily skin, you know, you can powder over it, but then you're going to have to keep on powdering because it won't stay dry. It's not very good at being mattified, and then you might look cakey if you apply too much powder. So it's definitely a dewy or satin finish. If you're oily, then it's dewy. If not, it's a perfect satin finish. If you're dry or normal and powder over it, then it'll be a little bit of a drier finish. It also kind of depends on how you apply it. If you apply it with your fingers or with a foundation brush or even a stippling brush, you'll kind of get that. If you apply it with a sponge, you're going to get a very light coverage, and it'll probably be more towards the satin dry finish, unless you have oily skin. The thing with this, I do not like to use this with a sponge. When I apply it, I prefer to use either my fingers or a brush. Reason why is because this soaks into a sponge so readily. I feel like I'm just wasting the entire product. My favorite is actually to squirt a bit on my hand, take a foundation brush and apply it. If I'm going to be using it as a foundation, you know, because I don't need a primer with it, I just apply it, let it dry and set for about 5 minutes, apply a second layer, then apply a powder. If it is, I can use a stippling brush. I honestly don't like this as a stippling brush because it has like, you know, little iridescent pigments in it. It kind of smears and you can kind of see the streaks when you use this kind of brush. It kind of leaves those streaks in there, which I don't like. If you love a stippling brush, then go ahead. You may need to powder over it or something, or even sponge over it just to give it a natural skin texture though, because this will kind of offset the texture. My absolute favorite is my fingers, whether I'm doing tinted moisturizer or foundation. If I'm doing tinted moisturizer or if I'm doing primer, I honestly just do it with my hands. I don't use a brush. A normal foundation brush gives a really nice thick application, which is great for foundation. But if you're going for tinted moisturizer or anything like that, just use clean, cleansed hands. And I know people freak out about that, but think about it. Even if you wash your brushes, bacteria will still get in there. If you wash your hands and exfoliate them, they're completely clean. And a lot of people complain about nails. You can actually get under your nails. Just hold them underneath the sink and just blast them, and then soak them in a little bit of like rubbing alcohol or antiseptic. Before you do your makeup, so that way you're clean. And your hands are a lot easier to clean than your brushes. So it's really not that big of a sanitary issue. Just, you know, you have to be careful on other people, of course, but for yourself, as long as you take the precautionary steps, it should be fine. So that's kind of how I like to apply it, and I'm actually going to show you guys how I like to apply this best. So I'm going to show you right now kind of what I do to apply and how it kind of works for me. So because this is like a primer and a foundation and a multi-benefit skincare thing all in one, I am actually not going to be applying a primer. So I'm just starting with really cleansed skin, and that's when I'm going to start applying this. And again, they only have like 4 colors. This is Vanilla Glow. But this is kind of what it looks like, and I am going to apply it to my hand and then use a foundation brush to apply it to my face. I would not recommend a sponge with this. You could, I wouldn't recommend it, but just a little bit there on the hand, and you can then just apply that as you go. I'm going to start with the areas that I need the most coverage in. I'm just going to blend this out until it matches my skin color. They only have like 4 shades, so you do want to be careful with that. Make sure that you get one that is your color. Mine, this is a little bit yellow for me, but I knew that I wanted to try this out. And when you blend it out enough, it works as a tinted moisturizer, and it really doesn't offset the color of your skin. And you guys can see that even though it does have glitter in it, it's really not that shiny. Like, you cannot see that my face is like a glitter bomb. Like, even if you look really close, you can't tell that there's any glitter in there. So you guys can see after I've stippled that in that it is like a tinted moisturizer. It's definitely not mattifying. But you just kind of poke at it, and it actually, you know, it covers all right. It's not the best for a foundation. It's a really good tinted moisturizer, and because it has SPF, that's just great. But unless you apply a powder, it's really not going to be all that mattifying. So as a foundation, that's kind of what it looks like. And of course, and as you guys can see, it really doesn't offset the skin that much. So now I'm just going to take it a little bit down my neck just to make sure I don't have any awkward lines. So if I was going to use this as a base or a tinted moisturizer, this is like all I would do. But because I want a little bit fuller coverage and because I want to do this as a foundation today, I want it to be a little bit mattified, I'm actually going to go in with like a translucent powder. And if you guys have Makeup Forever HD or Dermablend or any translucent powder that you have will work fine. I'm using one that's all natural. It's just like powdered sea salt. And then a couple of like other ingredients, but it's just a really fine powder, and this is what's going to help mattify the face. So this is basically just a finishing powder. It'll still give me a light look. This will not be full coverage. Tastes so salty. I can't talk when I'm doing this because then I'm going to like breathe it in. But use whatever setting powder you have or that works best for you that's really mattifying if you want like a full foundation everyday look. So as you guys can see, I pat it on and then I kind of blend it in. And this is actually a pretty tight brush. I like to use tighter brushes when working with really fine powders. This is just from Dermablend, but use any brush that's really, really dense. You don't want one that's like really, really loose. You want it to be really, really dense so that it'll take in all the powder and really apply it kind of in a natural finish. Because if you use something that like has bristles that are way too big, like here's one, the bristles are way too big, that's not going to collect the really fine powder. So that's why you want something that's a little bit more dense. Next, I'm just going to finish off with a setting spray. And you guys can use any setting spray. This is the De-Slick Oil Control Makeup Setting Spray. Oh, hair in my mouth. By Urban Decay, and I like this one because it is sunscreen. It has a tendency to get a little bit moist or a little bit oily throughout the day. It's really not that big of a problem when I powder and everything, but I want to make sure that the powder doesn't absorb any oils. So I'm going to use this. You could use another Fixing Plus spray or something like that. This is the one I've been trying out recently, so that's just what I'm going to do. Gonna let that dry. And something that I like about this one is compared to the MAC Fix Plus and the original Urban Decay 2 is it has a really, really fine mist. Max Fix Plus has a really great formula, but the mist kind of makes you look splotchy for a couple minutes. This is like a super, super fine mist. If you want a review of this, I'll bring you one. But that is really it. So this will kind of air dry out, and that's all it takes to kind of apply this, and that's just how I prefer to apply it. So if you guys have tried this, let me know how you like it. Let me know also how you like to apply yours. But this is just kind of what works for me. When I do this, it will stay pretty mattified. Oil control is great. It lasts pretty long. It doesn't change color throughout the day either, which is nice. And depending on the powder, like, you know, the color of foundation, because it's so limited, they may not have your color. You can use a powder to correct a color. Like if this is too yellow for me, I could add a powder that's a little bit pinker of a tone. Or if you buy one that's a little bit too dark for you, use a powder that's lighter. If you buy one that's lighter, use a powder that's a little bit darker so that it matches the rest of your skin. Something I do not like about this is the shade range. There are only 4 shades, which is very upsetting. And as a foundation, that is just unacceptable. As a tinted moisturizer, that's okay. As a primer, it's actually a good thing because it's good to have a tinted primer. But that's why with the 4 shades, you have to be careful. You have to understand that you have to color correct with this. Does not go very, very light. This is the lightest. This is Vanilla Glow, and it's more of a yellowish than it is a pink. I'm more of a pink than a yellow. They do not have very deep colors either. But what you can do if you have a foundation that's too light, you can use a little bit of this to kind of darken it up. Or if you have a foundation that's too dark, you can use this to lighten it up. You know what I mean? Depending on which one you get. Or if you get 2 or whatever. That's kind of the best way to work it as a foundation. And if you want to do it as a foundation, and it's, you know, not the right color, powder correct. Use a powder that's lighter or darker to correct this. As a primer, this will correct your other foundations, and you can use this as a foundation to be corrected by your powders. I hope that made sense because it was like really confusing up in my brain and in my mouth and everything, kind of like all fell out like I was spewing chunks or something. It just kind of fell there on the floor. But that's kind of what I don't like about it, is that it has such a limited shade range. I really wish that they would kind of up the ante on that, especially if they're trying to say that it's a foundation. Tinted moisturizer, it's pretty good. It goes in pretty sheer, so the biggest concern is if you're going to use it as a foundation, you have to color correct. And then it's a perk that if you need to color correct something else, it's great as a primer. It's a pretty new product. It just came out a couple weeks ago, but the thing I love about it, it is so comfy to wear. Even as a foundation, I don't feel like I have a ton of gunk on my face. I have 2 layers on plus a powder right now, but it's so fast too. Because if as a foundation, I just need a foundation powder. I don't need a primer or anything like that. So it's really, really quick, but I like it. It's so comfy. Like, I don't feel like I have a ton of stuff on there. Right now, I can kind of feel it because of the powder. As a tinted moisturizer, this feels like a second skin. You can't feel it as a tinted moisturizer, which is why I love it so much as a tinted moisturizer. As a primer, you can't really feel it. It's all right. Depends on the foundation you put over it. It does hold pretty well. I have used better primers, but it's not bad. Like, and if it comes with everything else, it's worth it. And it has SPF, so that's really, really, really good. But as a tinted moisturizer, it is just amazing. It's just super comfortable to wear even all day. Now, I do have oily skin, so at the end of the day, I may be worried about oiliness and stuff, but it's not cakey. I don't feel like it's creasy. Over the day, it will not crease as a tinted moisturizer. If you use a powder, depending on the powder you use, it may crease a little bit. So that's why I say if you have wrinkles or if you have fine lines and wrinkles, don't powder with this. Just use it as a foundation without any setting powder. You can use a setting spray, just not a setting powder, because the powder will cause, at the end of the day, a little bit of settling into these wrinkles. So that's why you should use, you know, a powder to mattify it if you don't have wrinkles, or if you do have wrinkles, just use it without a powder, or just by itself with a setting spray. It usually creases right here for me, and then a little bit under here as well. The other thing is that it is not good for photos. Even if you mattify it with a powder, do not use this for photos. Reason why is because it does have a little bit of that luminosity, and there's a couple ingredients in here that just kind of offset colors and kind of offset on camera. And as a model, you have to be really careful of what foundation you're wearing, but because this is a little bit luminous, you're going to glow and look amazing in everyday light. But if someone takes a picture of you with flash, it'll kind of flash weird and your skin will come back a little bit different, and it might be shiny in some areas, or it might come off like a bright yellow or a bright red, just because of the ingredients that are in there and the way the light picks it up. So not good for photos. Don't use it for weddings, don't use it for that, but this is a great everyday foundation. Wear this to the beach, wear this when you don't want to do something every day, wear it to the store. Great everyday foundation for when you're not going to be on camera or on film or things like that. On camera it's not so bad, but on actual, like, you know, click camera, ooh, smile, flashy, no, not good for picture day. I do not think it's very comedogenic. I looked at some of the ingredients. It's a pretty good thing for acneic skin. It's great for aging skin, and it's good to prevent aging too, just because it has the sunscreen in it. If you have mature skin, this is great for you. If you have young skin, it's pretty good, especially if you're a teenager going to school and you have dry or normal skin. This is great because it's not too much. You're not going to look cakey in class. And if you have dry or normal skin, it'll stay pretty well all day. If you have oily skin, may not be the best because you may get a little bit oily throughout the day. But overall, I love this for kind of all ages, and because it's very, very versatile, it's a pretty good buy for only $32 in my personal opinion. The colors do kind of set me off, but it's not bad. Foundations it compares to, that's kind of hard because there really is nothing like it. It has so much in it that there's nothing like it. If you guys have ever used the Cover FX Tinted Moisturizer, if you sheer this out really, really well, it's like that. The Cover FX one is like sheer, like completely sheer. If you guys use the Miracle Skin Transformer that's tinted, it works kind of like that. Almay, the one from the drugstore, the Color Correct, it works just like that, only the color isn't as weird. The Almay one gives me like the weirdest color. I hate it. And it's like all off. This does not give me that weird color, but it's the same sheerness and the same lightweight feel as the Almay really sheer color correcting one. But basically any tinted moisture that's not super, super sheer and that's not super, super heavy, like the Dermablend Tinted Moisturizer, heck no, techno, not like this at all. Miracle Skin Transformer, Dermalogica Clean Start Tinted Moisturizer, like Shine or Hello or whatever it's called. It works kind of like those. I think the best swap would be the Almay one from the drugstore, but again, that's so off just because the Almay one is not my favorite. But I actually really like this, and the other things that has so many things in it that it's so different. There really is no other primer like it, and I don't really know of another foundation like it either. It works best as a tinted moisturizer, basically. If you guys are thinking about it, be sure to try it out on your hands or try it out on your face. And don't let the makeup artist do it, because they do not always know what they're doing. You have no idea how many times these people have like messed me up. I'm like, no! Test it out for yourself, because you're the one who's going to be using it. Don't let someone else put it on you and all that. Do it yourself and just test it out throughout the entire day and see how you like it. Because you're not going to have someone come home with you every day and do it on your face. You're going to do it yourself, so you need to understand how to do it. And then also sometimes they just don't know what they're doing. And I'm not saying that about everybody, but there are some people that just very upsetting, and it's so unfortunate because I see people that end up not knowing what to do with their cosmetics. But try it out, see how you like it, and really feel the texture just because it is so different. Also, synthetic or natural brushes, please use this with a synthetic brush. If you use this with a natural brush, because it is more sheer, natural bristles absorb more than synthetic. So if you use this with the natural bristles are going to absorb everything, and you're not going to be applying much to your face at all. Because it's so sheer, you need that application. That's why a synthetic bristle that's like plastic or something like that, synthetic, it'll apply more evenly and transfer from the brush to your skin. Again, don't use a sponge because the sponge will absorb it. My absolute favorite is clean, exfoliated, sanitized fingertips. But a foundation brush works pretty well. If you're looking for a super, super sheer application, then go ahead and use a brush and just really, really buff it out, like buff, 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 buff. Just like a slight buffing brush. Full coverage foundation brush works if you want a full coverage, a fuller coverage. I do not like the stippling brush just because it streaks with this one, just because this one is sheer and it has that luminosity, so try not to use that. Best possible way is kind of what I showed you. Fingertips, apply, and then either probably setting powder or powder. So I hope that this helped you guys. I hope that this answered your questions. That's just what I've been loving about it. I have not noticed it's breaking me out. If anything, it's been making my skin better, just because my skin can breathe more, and because it has SPF in it. And the ingredients are not very comedogenic, which is good. So if you guys have tried it, let me know what you think. If you guys have concerns about it that I didn't touch on, tell me what you think. If you guys like something that I didn't touch on, tell me what you think. And if you have it yourself, post a video response and show everyone else in the entire world kind of what you think of it as well. So that's just what I think. I hope that you guys enjoyed this review, and I hope that you found it helpful. And I will most certainly be talking to you all in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.